there's something that, okay, I've been arguing with my liberal friends and family members about the Russia-Ukraine thing for a long time. And I've kind of given up. It's like you can't draw blood from a stone, right? Just like you can't get a liberal to accept the fact that Russia is just another country, right? And operates in the same manner that any other country does. But okay, it's actually the same problem that you have with conservatives in China. Like there's a meme out there where it shows like a conservative saying China, 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 and a liberal saying Russia, Russia, Russia. And that's literally reality. It's just literally reality. But nevertheless, I do have to bring up Russia one more time. So if it's sensitive for you, I'm very sorry. But we're gonna get through it together. Okay, you and me. So I just need you to hold on tight, okay, and try to listen to the voice of reason, right? If you're a liberal idealist, listen to some new good ideas, right? And maybe I can convince you. Okay? Maybe idealism is real, right? Okay. Let's start out by saying this once again. Loud enough so those in the back can hear it. Over 6,000 children have died in Gaza since the start of this conflict. Over 6,000. Children. 13,300 people, but over 6,000 children. If you need a reality check, and I'm being dead, if you need a reality check, if my goofiness and my gregarious radio presence is making it not seem real, if you need a reality check, go on social media. Go on Twitter, X, whatever you're going to call it, or go on Telegram. And the only case where I don't recommend you do that is if you have a remotely weak constitution. Because the level of brutality we're talking about, it's one thing to say 6,000 children. It's another thing to see endless pictures and videos of kids suffering and dying. It's going on. It has been going on right now. Obviously, we're in the middle of this, possibly brief ceasefire, but I don't see how any person who values human life whatsoever can see children dying in those numbers and simply ignore or justify that level of brutality and the disproportionality in terms of the response from Israel. I think the only way that you can rationalize that is ignoring it, partly ignoring it. And I think that, at least if you're going to say that you just straight up ignore it, be upfront about that. But don't tell me you look at those pictures and you look at those kids suffering and you say that that's justifiable. And also say that you're a human being in the same breath. But okay, we all agree it's bad. There's really not that many people out there who would defend that. I believe that. So, over 6,000 children dead. We're all against that, right? Okay. Well, I want to wind the clock back a little to March 17th, 2023. So back in March, the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for the leader of Russia, Vladimir Putin. And the reason the ICC issued this arrest warrant was for Putin's alleged orchestration of child abductions in Ukraine. What are they talking about? Well, as part of Russia's policy in the special military operation, the invasion into Ukraine, and the occupation of the Donbass, eastern Ukraine, and various other regions in in Ukraine, eastern Ukraine, still part of Ukraine, legally. As part of this, the Russian government ordered the removal of 6,000 children from this war zone. And they removed these children and placed them into camps. Now, this was the pretense for, and actually I should say, there was a subsequent study conducted by the Yale School of Public Health, which stated that Russia had operated camps that hold 6,000 children from Ukraine in captivity and they're being held in both occupied Ukraine in the east and mainland Russia, right? So the ICC wants Putin in jail for abducting children. Now, this Yale study, this information comes from a media company, a journalism outlet, Gray Zone, which I highly recommend if you want a more of a dissident view on any of these topics, be it Ukraine, Israel, whatever. Highly recommend Gray Zone. But Gray Zone did this study where they ironically looked at the Yale study, and they talk about how the Yale study was conducted using open source research, which did not include interviews with any of the children or parents of children in the camps themselves. And the reporters never visited the camps. The parents provided consent for the children to be taken to these camps, but often did not want to testify regarding the quality of these detention camps or centers or whatever because of fear of reprisal from the Ukrainian government. But okay, at the time, I mean, everybody was really up in arms. And I want to play you just a few clips here from the mainstream news media when this was still something that mattered to people. It's crazy now with the whole Israel thing. Like now the Ukraine stuff doesn't matter to anybody, sadly, tragically. But okay, let's listen to what, like CNN was saying about this at the time.
Was conducting an extensive campaign to take Ukrainian children to Russia.
Russia is reportedly taking Ukrainian children, thousands of them.
Russia has been holding thousands of Ukrainian children.
A new report out this week captures the scale of Russia's system of supervising Ukrainian children uprooted during this war.
Actions, according to the report's authors, that constitute war crimes under international law.
Well, it's certainly evil.
I mean, this is truly sickening. I mean, this is sick.
Nathaniel Raymond, the executive director of the Yale Humanitarian Research Lab, did his press rounds when the report was published and made some very serious pronouncements, comparing this movement of children out of war zones to schools and camps to massacres and the Holocaust.
We're basically talking about thousands of children that are in a hostage situation. I have been a war crimes investigator for 24 years. I've worked on everything from torture to large-scale massacres. This has been one of the hardest reports I've worked on because I'm watching a disaster that is a human rights emergency that's going to radiate for decades for these children. We are basically dealing with the largest network of children's camps seen in the 21st century.
These bold claims, which led to an international criminal court arrest warrant, were based on, according to the Yale lab, quote, open source research, where 0 interviews with actual victims were conducted, and the researchers didn't even attempt to see any of the camps in person.
So, exactly as we stated before, there's this widespread media outcry over this, ICC arrest warrant issued for Putin, crime against humanity, comparisons to the Holocaust, comparisons to some of the most atrocious things that have ever happened in human history, or at least modern history. It's really bad, right? But, there's some holes in the research, which was the basis for this condemnation and also the basis for this ICC arrest warrant. So, what is going on in the camps? Well, Jeremy Lafredo, reporter from the Gray Zone, did visit one of the camps. Okay, the camp that he visited is located in Pokrovskoy, right, which is in Russia. And Mr. Lafredo found that the camp was, in fact, a music school. A music school in which children who were aspiring musicians could learn from professional teachers who lived on site with the children. Where is the ICC arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu, is my question. Because there's an ICC arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin for initiating a program that shipped thousands of children, let me get this straight, shipped thousands of children out of an active war zone and into schools where they could get an actual education and be safe from, being hit by missiles and bombs. So there's an ICC arrest warrant for Putin for facilitating that program. Is there going to be an ICC arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu for overseeing a military campaign which has killed 6,000 children? Is there going to be an ICC arrest warrant for General Halevi of the IDF for overseeing a military campaign which has killed over 6,000 children? Why are double standards like this okay? I need it explained to me. Why are double standards like this okay? Why do we hold Russia to a different standard than we do Israel? And I'm not willing to accept this, very lazy response of well, Russia's an adversary of the... No, if we believe, if you're going to... Look, I have issues with the idea that there is any kind of international basis for law and order, because America has invaded countries with almost no reason behind it whatsoever. I mean, the Iraq War, interfering in Libya and Syria, killing civilians in insanely high numbers. We put Israel to shame, quite honestly. They estimate over 1 million people died in the Iraq War. But nevertheless, it's if we're going to pretend we're going to play along there really is a rules. They were saying this the whole time with the Russia conflict. Rules-based international order. Rules-based international order. Okay, so if there are rules, then why do those rules not only not apply to us, they don't apply to Israel? It doesn't matter that Israel kills 6,000 kids. There's no arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu. There's no arrest warrant for General Halevi. When it comes down to it, international support may be with Palestine nominally, but how many countries actually come to their aid? Like I was saying before, part of my reason for optimism is that so many countries condemn Israel for what they're doing. Well, it's crazy to me that there are still some in the Zionist camp who seem to think that there's a propaganda, like Netanyahu was saying to Elon, there's a propaganda narrative, right? That convinces people to hate Israel, right? And that's the reason people sympathize with Palestinians. Okay, well, why is it that Benjamin Netanyahu does not have an ICC arrest warrant for him? If there's so much propaganda out there, the world is so against Israel, poor little defenseless Israel. Why isn't the UN? Isn't anyone stepping in and stopping this immediately? I said before, I think the rest of the world would have to step up if they just straight up tried to kill every single person in Gaza. But the fact that they're killing, over 10,000 people, innocent people, and nobody's stepping in really to do anything of substance. I mean, it's clear. The Palestinians do not have a lot of real support in the world, unfortunately. And many people criticize Israel, but at the end of the day, they're allowed to play by a different set of rules than other countries do. And it's it's not because of some international Jewish conspiracy or any stupid thing that the far right or people like that say. The reason is because Israel is essentially a pet project, a satellite state of the U.S. And those rules don't apply to the U.S. either. We went into Iraq. We were condemned by a bunch of countries, by the Germans, by the French. And we went ahead and went in and did whatever we wanted, and nobody paid any there was no consequences for it. George W. Bush is teaching master classes online in leadership. I'm serious. You can go and I kind of want to play the trailer in case you haven't heard it. But he does. He teaches a master class in leadership online. Donald Rumsfeld, Colin Powell, you name it. Nobody had to, be led to the gallows over that or less. Nobody did any time, The rules just don't apply to us. And that's what makes me so outraged about the whole Russia-Ukraine thing. I'm not implying Putin is the greatest human who ever lived and he's this lovely, sweet person. But, relocating 6,000 children from a war zone to be put into schools and there's an arrest warrant issued for him it's crazy. We live in a very crazy world.